We're going to stay with education, though. I was reading in the weekend, a Sydney high school has seen a dramatic decrease in behavioural issues and a boost in physical activity after cracking down on mobile phone usage amongst students. Davidson High School principal David Rule says there's been significant changes in students' behaviour since year 7 to 10-year-olds were banned from using phones at school. And they've got an interesting technology for this. There's a kind of lockable bag the phones go into. If you're going to use them for study, only the teacher can unlock the bag. So basically, you can have your phone going to and from school, clearly talk to your folks, Jack getting picked up. But once you're at school, the phone is off limits. It's taken off you. Now, I do know that some schools, some colleges in New Zealand have been doing this. But to find out whether or not we've got serious statistics or any serious studies, because it just seems to me instinctually to be a good idea, we're joined now by the New Zealand Principals Association President, Pat Newman. Pat, welcome to the platform. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Kia ora, Sean, but I'm no longer the president of the NZP. I haven't been for 20 years, but I am president of Tokerau.
Oh, Tokerau, that's right.
I don't mind claiming nationally.
Okay, all right. Do you think this is a good idea?
Yeah, mate. I've been a principal for 40 plus years, and I've never allowed phones in any of my primary schools. When I started teaching, we actually had a thing called where it was on the party lines, and so I've seen the whole lot. But basically at this school and in many primary schools and in increasing numbers of secondary schools, there is a ban being put on having phones at school. At this school, if they want a phone and they turn up with it at school, it goes to the office, it stays there, and I ring the parents and say, come and collect it.
All right, because they are ubiquitous amongst our young people now, the cell phone, isn't it?
Yeah, they are, and you don't need to do a hell of a lot of research to actually work out that they're causing a heck of a lot of hassles around social media, around bullying, around the kids more interested in watching what's on the phone than actually doing their learning. And as I said, you don't actually need a hell of a lot of research to do that. It's obvious. And I think in actual fact it gives kids and students and even secondary students 4 or 5 hours a day where they're free from that sort of thing, and they can actually go out instead of playing games on their phones, that they actually go out and do activities. And
heaven forbid, get on with each other or learn to get on with each other.
Well, the big one is they talk, and there's a lot of evidence. There in New Zealand's high schools have been doing this for a few years now, and there's a lot of evidence that that's what happens. And imagine, secondary students, teenagers, actually talking to each other without using the screen in between.
Is there a national policy on this, Pat, or not?
No, there's not, because it's over to each board of trustees. And to be quite honest, probably at primary and intermediate level, the biggest ones driving having phones in schools are parents that seem to think it's a natural requirement that their child needs to have a phone 24 hours a day, which is cuckoo land.
Yeah.
And I think the parents themselves, and in most schools they do support the thing, saying that at that age they don't need a phone at school. Most schools have access. If the kid needs to get hold of a parent, they can do it through the school system. And at high school, again, there's a lot of pressure from the students themselves, and there's a lot of pressure from parents. But what I've read and heard is that once the ban comes in, there's also a heck of a lot of support comes in to have it.
How does it work? I mean, this Sydney model, you can bring your phone to school, but you've got to put it in some sort of locked bag. What are New Zealand schools doing it? You're handing it in at the front desk, or do you just have to, you get trusted not to use it?
I think trusting not to use it doesn't actually work that well. Teenagers and pupils are kids, if you know what I mean. In most schools, it's either a hand in the office, and if we find it, we'll take it and put it into the office and ring your parents or give it back to you after school. And I think in the high schools it's similar. They haven't got lockable bags, I don't think, most of them. It's just there's a box or there's a container or something like that. You put the phone in and collect it later.
Would you like to see a national guideline on this or a policy on this?
No, I'd just like parents to have some common sense. I mean, Are we going to bring in laws and rules for when you go to the toilet and when you pick your nose? I know I shouldn't say that on radio, but it's...
No, you can say anything you want on the platform.
Yeah, well, where do you stop? And I'm not a libertine, but I think it's over to parents to get some common sense and actually be parents and say, no, you can't have a phone at school.
Mm. Is there any substantive research that we've got that shows how this might improve educational achievement, or in general, just the atmosphere in classrooms or at schools?
Yeah, look, you've got the one you've quoted in Australia, and there are a number of high schools that have brought this in and found exactly the same results where, as you said, kids play sport, kids actually talk to each other, there's less bullying, there's less stress. It's common sense.
Yeah, it is really. And I guess, to be honest, I'm sitting here thinking, Pat, if it's good for school kids to limit their cell phone time, we should probably do it in workplaces as well. People have often got to communicate in the workplace or just in our general lives. I've got an app that tells me how much time I spend on social media on my phone. About 6-7 months ago, I looked at it. I was just appalled at the hours I was wasting looking at Twitter and Facebook. And I'm trying every week to bring that down.
Yep, and think of the people that drive their cars and still do it, even though we brought a law in and we actually fine them. But they can't seem to go 5 minutes or 10 minutes without doing it.
Yeah, I guess the other thing what schools could do is simply have, block the signals so that no one can use a device improperly. Jamming like prisons.
Yeah, but you get started to get... I could put barbed wire up around everywhere and electrify it as well.
Yeah, well, some schools look like that. You've never been to boarding school.
No, they do it by the food they serve. No, I shouldn't say that. I'll get shot.
Yeah.
But, look, that sort of thing, why should a school have to go to it?
Yeah.
We have the power to make, each school has the power to make rules. Each school, and those rules actually have the same substance as a council bylaw, by the way.
So Pat, how many colleges would you say in New Zealand effectively have a cell phone ban now?
I'm going to say increasing numbers because we're hearing about it all the time. And I wouldn't be surprised to be probably talking at least 20%, if not more, and I'm sure most of them are thinking about it. But they do, at high school, you do have a lot of peer group from this pressure from the students. Yeah. And also a lot of pressure from parents who think that it's a safety thing to have the phone.
It's not. Well, what's wrong with going to the office?
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right. So Pat, what would you say to boards of trustees or teacher faculties who are looking at this issue? What would your recommendation be?
It would be to have a look at the evidence that's out there, talk to some of the schools that are doing it, and then decide whether this is one of the ways that you may help with bullying, concentration of kids and students, and them actually getting out and playing more sport and talking to each other.
Pat, that is great advice.
And if so, then bring it in.
Yep, that is really good advice. I thank you for joining us, Pat. It is, and look, there it is. I'm interested to hear from you. You got kids, you got school-age kids. Do you think they need a phone at school? If so, why on earth do they need a phone at school? Would you be supportive at your kid's school, or if you're a child, because I know some of you won't be at school yet, but hopefully most of you won't. Would you snowflake into a little pile of cold water if you weren't allowed to have your phone at school? 20%, Pat reckoned, 20% of schools may have banned phones on campus. I say everyone should. I'd love to see a law. I'd love to see a law. It says no cell phones, no devices at school. Learn how to be a real human being in the real world first.